one of your earlier tips, somebody at the Death and Dying Study Group remembered it. I think it was Ruth who remembered it. So if we got in the habit of saying, "Oh, money, pay me home," instead of "Oh shit," that when we're dying, we might remember to just say, "Oh, money, pay me home."
Good.
But I love it the way the tips, if they're short, and then if we've heard the tip and been reminded of it, it might come to mind when we need it. Yeah.
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 Especially if we practice.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Okay. Honey, could you just throw me one of those cushions, please? Thank you. That's fine. Yeah, I just need something for my old leg.
Could we just take a moment to introduce June because she's new to us?
Thank you.
June?
See you. Yeah.
So,
I've met some of you already.
so since we are actually streaming,
We are.
okay. Is that okay?
That's right.
We can turn it off at any time. So, you want to repeat?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is June. I live in outer northwest Portland, so it's close to Intel and Nike. So,
Is the battery going? Is the battery? Maybe the battery? It says it's on, but it's...
yeah.
He's up there.
And
This one isn't working either. Right?
does
Maybe
that?
you turned it off.
No.
No, okay.
There was all that objection to streaming.
So if you just maybe project.
Yeah. So I came to this site through a research for His Holiness Ms. Karmapa, and I. Thank you. Yeah, I had the honor to attend one of his ceremonies in New York City in 2014. That was my dad's birthday, and the whole family went just for that ceremony. And then ever since then, I felt very, deep connection. It felt like it's a refound connection towards him. And I was always searching for his schedule to travel back to the U.S. Somehow I always missed it. I think it's part of the security reason they can't really disclose all his future arrangement of traveling. So somehow, while I was searching his website, it led me to this website of KCC, and then I came to visit the next day immediately for the Chiranzik meditation. And I found out that was Guan Yin, right, in Tibetan language. And I came again the following Wednesday, and very, very grateful to meet you all. Thank you.
Welcome. So glad you found us. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Bardo buddies, huh? Here we are again. Couple of my favorite quotes. When the last hour is at hand, you will stand at a crossroad. If you have prepared in advance, you will be ready to move on with great ease and confidence, like an eagle soaring into the sky. Mm-hmm. And they say, to practice death is to practice freedom. A man who's learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. So here we are, once again. So I put out the plan so everybody kind of know what we were up to, and thought I would start this time with our practice first, and then get on to the more business of what our groups and, what we all are hoping to accomplish. So we'll start with the contemplation, which I will guide, as I think I've done before a couple times, the contemplation about the four thoughts that turn our minds from our usually worldly refuges. So everybody get comfortable and relaxed, and maybe want to close your eyes or not, whatever makes you comfortable. And just let your minds settle. So, human life is considered the best realm because of the ability to self-reflect, to receive teachings, and to become enlightened. So how precious this existence. It is hard to come by and is fragile and transient. So now, for just a few moments, appreciate this rare opportunity and vow not to waste another moment of it in pursuit of trivial desires. And now, the second thought, contemplate the truth of impermanence. Everything in the phenomenal world will change and eventually cease to exist. Remember the four ends. All meetings end in parting. All accumulations, acquisitions end in dispersion. All buildings collapse. All life ends in death. Everything is fleeting. So think about how attachment to these fleeting events only causes suffering. And now, contemplate the truth of cause and effect, karma. We are all a result of an endless chain of causes and effects involving our parents and ancestors, stretching back through time, all the way to the very elements that make us up. This chain of cause and effect is infinite and endless. Past actions shadow us, and the future is being laid down each moment. Consider that kindness and compassion give rise to good effects. Aggression, attachment, and greed give rise to suffering. Realize the truth of consequences for every small action or thought throughout the day. Finally, consider the truth of suffering: birth, old age, sickness, and death. This is samsara, getting what you don't want, not getting what you do want, always wanting something. You will inevitably lose what you get in any case, and that which you most cherish is a cause of suffering in itself. So as you relax into this contemplation of suffering, imagine taking in the suffering of this existence. Whatever you perceive as suffering, the suffering of yourself and others, in the form of black smoke. Breathe this suffering in, breathe it into your heart, acknowledging and meeting it with your heart's compassion. And as you do this, imagine that suffering is relieved. And then imagine breathing, radiating out from all the pores of your body, all your joys, strengths, everything you value and hold precious, in the form of a radiant white light. Imagine that all beings are filled with joy and peace as they're touched and supported by this light. So now we'll start with refuge. And let's see. Actually, maybe we'll use the one that we usually use for Sunday practice, since not everybody has copies of our... Thought I had some. Anybody need? June, do you need?
Yeah, there's someone else.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings nourish them in lasting peace and happiness. So the shamatha practice that we will be doing is, we've done here before, the 5-element practice, and I'll just review the elements of that. So the elements are earth, water, fire, wind, and space. The symbol for earth is a golden cube. For water is a white sphere. For fire is a solid red triangle. Wind, green half moon. And space is a blue sphere. So each of these elements has an outer, intermediate, and inner meaning. So the outer meaning for earth are the solids that we find, solid things that we perceive all around us. The intermediate is our flesh and bone, and the inner meaning is our ability to have dualistic thoughts, our fixed ideas and thoughts. For water, the outer is liquids, rivers, rain. Inner is blood and body fluids, or intermediate, and the inner is the unobstructed nature of the mind. So for fire, the external is heat, the intermediate is body temperature, passions, and the inner is the luminosity of the mind. For wind, the outer is gases, air, intermediate is breath, and the inner is the ability, the movement of the mind. And then lastly is space, represented in the outer by space, in the body with pores and cavities, and in the mind, the empty nature of the mind. So the practice is a gradual dissolving of each of those elements into each other. And I will guide us through, and I will leave a couple of minutes for the meditation on each element as we go along. So imagine a golden cube of light in front of you, about 4 inches in diameter. It's rainbow-like, insubstantial, but clear in appearance. This is the earth element, which represents the solid aspects of our experience, our flesh and bones, our fixed ideas and beliefs, what we see as solid in our environment. Rest on this golden cube of light, a couple of feet in front of your eyes for a few moments. Now imagine this golden cube, the earth element, now dissolves into the water element. A glowing white sphere, also rainbow-like and insubstantial, but clearly appearing, about 3 inches in diameter. This is the water element, representing liquids, body and internal fluids, and the unobstructed nature of the mind. Let your mind rest on this white sphere, a couple of feet in front of your eyes. Now allow this sphere, the water element, to dissolve into the fire element, a bright, solid red triangle, about 2 inches in height. Again, insubstantial, rainbow-like, but very clearly appearing. It represents heat, passions, body temperature, and the luminosity of the mind. Now allow the red triangle, or the fire element, to dissolve into the wind element, a solid half moon, like half of a pie, insubstantial, clearly appearing, about 1 inch in diameter, representing gases, air, breath, and movement. And now allow the wind element, the green half moon, to dissolve into the space element. A small blue sphere, the color of a robin's egg, about 1/2 inch diameter, insubstantial, rainbow-like, representing space, cavities, the empty aspect of the mind. And now allow the space element to dissolve into consciousness. A tiny, clear bubble, crystal clear. Allow this bubble to gradually expand to encompass your body, the room, and beyond, gradually until it includes the globe and to the edges of space, and rest in consciousness. I think something similar happens as we dissolve our body into death. Good practice. So, let's see. Oh,
I forgot it.
sure. I love this one. We get to all say this together. This is a wonderful book, by the way. Mind Beyond Death by Ponlap. And this is an excerpt from that for those of you unfamiliar. Oh.
I'm sorry, Louise.
That's quite okay. Did all the copies get handed out? Extra. Okay, the 6 root verses of the 6 bardos. A nice reminder for us. Ema, at this time when the bardo of this life appears to you, abandon laziness, since there is not On the back of the agenda are the Dewa Chen prayer and the two dohas, and we'll we'll sing each of them 3 times. Oh, yeah. Everyone else have copy? The back side of the agenda. The Bardo Buddies gathering on the agenda. If you copied it off at home, it was the second page. Oh, okay. Who's got a good voice? No so sanje nang wataye dang Yesu jowo tu je chen po dang Yandu sempa tu chen top nam la Sanje jong sembak me kor ji kor Deki no sarpa tu me pai Yewa chen che jawe jing kam der Dagni dine se pokyor mata Yewa chen di barma chu baru Deru ke ne na te jel tom sho Deke daki mon la tapadi Chochu sanje josem tam cheki Gek me drupar jinti la tu so Teata pensendria awa bodani soha no sar sanje nam wataye gam Yesu jowo tu che chen podam Yondu sempa tu chen top nam la Sanje jang sempak me kor ji kor Dekin il sarpak tu me pai Dewa chen che jawe jing tam der Dagni dine se pokyor mata Dewa chen ji barma chu paru Deru kene nan te jel tong sho Neke dagi man la tapadi Chochu sange tam chem tam cheki Gek me drupar jinti la tu so Teata pensandria awa bodani soha Hey maho no sar sanje nam wataye dam Yesu jowo tu che chen podam Yondu sempa tu chen top nam la Sanje jang sempa me kor ji kor Deki no sarpa tu me pai Dewa chen che jawa jing kam der Dagni dine se pokyor mata Kewa chen di barma chu paru Deru kene nang te jel tong sho Leke daki man lap tapadi Chochu sangye jang sem tam need to start a little higher. You want to start?
Oh, go ahead. It's the first line that throws me.
Like a dream, like an illusion, like a city of harvest. That's what birth and that's what living, that's what dying are taught to be. Like a dream, like an illusion, like a city of harvest. That's what's birth, and that's what's living, that's what dying are taught to be. Like a dream, like an illusion, like a city of gondolas. That's what's birth, and that's what's living, that's what dying are taught to be. All you sentient beings, I have a good or bad connection with. As soon as you have left this confused dimension, may you be born in the Western Sukhavati, and once you're born there, complete the bloomies and the paths. All you sentient beings, I have a good or bad connection with. As soon as you have left this confused dimension, may you be born in the Western Sukhavati, and once you're born there, complete the boomies and the paths. All you sentient beings, I have a good or bad connection with. As soon as you have left this confused dimension, may you be born in the Western Sukhavati, and once you're born there, complete the boomies and the paths. Thank you.
Julie, could I add something? You said something? Is that okay? Now, whenever, ever since, was it Lama Mike, Mark from New Mexico with the red robes who came for Rinpoche's teachings? And he came here once, and after the last time we met here, he happened to say, when people are in the last stages of dying, things get extra loose, and they could be confusing to somebody, but they're really just loosening the solidity of various things. And so time and again, I keep hearing that And I love thinking about what looks like confusion to us is just our practicing letting go. Like our confusion on what the tune was.
So maybe since we have a new guest, we could just quickly introduce each other around to June.
Start me. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is June, and I'm new to the community here. Such a blessing to have found all of you, and looking forward to learning more from everyone here. Thank you.
My name's Cynthia, and I've been a few years at KCC and really love the direction it's taking with these expanded classes on dying.
Silvia. I have been part of the Sangha for a year now, and I'm very, very pleased that I found you, and let's see where we go.
I'm Carolyn, and I've enjoyed this group particularly and practiced with little subgroups, and then I've been in summertime, so I'm totally like out of it.
Hello all, I'm Sally. I'm glad to finally get here today. And I've been coming here for, 7 years or something, 8 years. And stumbling along and, keep learning things.
Hi, I'm one more Linda here at the KCC. Linda Denning is my last name. D. Okay. Linda D. I first started coming to the KCC in 1983, so I've been around for a long time. Left Portland for a while, came back, got reconnected many years ago now, and it's been wonderful for all those years. It has just grown and thrived, and it's the best it's ever been right now.
I'm Miriam, and I just started, the first time I was here was at the open house at this building, so it hasn't been that long, and I just took refuge when Rinpoche was here, so I'm pretty new.
I'm Mike, and I'm amazed at the transformation of the temple since we came here, as well as all of you for being my teachers. Thank you.
I'm married. There used to be a lot of Marys. I don't think there's so many now, is there?
No.
Anyway, I'm not the oldest old timer, but I think I walked in the door here in 1999, and I haven't looked back.
I don't really know how to introduce myself today, but Melinda, and confused and glad to be here, and looking forward to the rest of the session.
I'm Dave, and I am looking forward to the rest of the session.
I'm Peter. I've been here, attending here since about 2000, and like it pretty much. So it's nice to be here.
I'm Bonnie, and I can't quite remember how long I've been here, maybe about 10 years. And just so grateful for this wonderful group of people and teachings and support and these new developments, our new place, and doing things like this. The Death and Dying group has been trying to get off the ground, it seems, forever. And it's so glad to have it take this turn. Thanks, Julie. And welcome to new people.
Thank you all for being here. And I'm Julie. I've been here since 1992, I guess. So it's been a while.
This year I was born. I have to say it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so, well, everybody wants to get on with the rest of the session, huh? That's what I heard. So, so maybe just sharing whatever whatever has been going on, coming up, what's been going on with the subgroups, or just individually, anything that rises to the surface that you'd like to share. We'd love to hear it. So, it's hard for me to get up.
I guess my main concern is expectations of dying perfectly. I know I'm not going to, and I guess I don't want to be judged for that, and so I'm asking you in advance. Please don't. No, I'm kidding. So. Well, anyway, so I wanted to bring that up. There's so much perfection running around, and let's not bring it into my bedroom at the end of my life or something, or anybody else's. And, anyway, I feel very selfish bringing that up, but that's what I had to bring.
And I don't think it's selfish at all. I think that I think it's good to say things like that, because like most of you know, I used to be a hospice nurse, and so we can all put lots of expectations on about what's supposed to happen and what we want to happen, but in truth, we don't really know what's going to happen. My practice, the practices that I do that try to strengthen me are mostly just trying to be aware. And I read the many teachings we read, and some of them I say, I agree with that. Some of them I say, I don't agree with that. And I think that's okay too. But yeah, and I think it's good to say, just because I think that we can set such a high bar sometimes that we give ourselves a whole new thing to be anxious about, like, will I be able to do POA when I'm dying? Maybe not. I have an opinion about that, but I don't need to share it, but I do. So we all do have opinions about all these different things, and that's okay. And I think it's okay to even admit it to yourself. And relax and just try to be, and just remember that the path that you're living now is actually what's going to help you later. So the main thing is do your practice, try to be aware, be kind, and you are kind, Melinda. And I just want you to know I love you.
If I am so fortunate as to be by your bedside when you are passing over, Melinda, I will do my best to celebrate your perfect imperfection. Having said that, what's up for me is I'm moving to Ashland. And it's just, I know that one of the challenges and problems of obstacles for me is leaving this, not leaving, but having that extra physical distance between where I'm living and where this Sangha is, for the most part. There's a couple of Sangha members that'll be down there. And I just realized that one of my expectations and wishes is to have people like you all, or even some of you with me when I come to that. But then I realize I have no idea where I will be or when it will happen, or what state I'll be in. So, but you might get calls from me saying, I need some of you to come to where I am, which might be in Southern Oregon, or it might be somewhere else. And I guess it also brings to mind the need to be working on that sense of us not being divided by physical distance. And so maybe this will be a special opportunity for me to work on that, to sense being with you all, even though we're not in the physical proximity of each other. But you know, I go along and I think, oh, I'm pretty good with death. I'm doing the meditation stuff, and there's the emptiness stuff. And then I run into some pothole in the road like this, and I realize, oh, I'm not quite so okay with it as I thought I was. And this is good to run into those potholes just to wake up a bit. Thank you all for doing this.
Thank you. Give me an opportunity to share my 1.5 cents word. So today, in the morning, I went to another temple that is a Mahayana temple that I usually go with my parents sometime on Saturdays. So today on lunar calendar is a festival called Zhongyuan Festival to pay a tribute to ancestors. So we did a ceremony there in Medicine Street, close to Southeast Portland. So I just feel like what a perfect occasion to also touch on this and talk to them and really try to connect to them, not only remember them one day of the year, but knowing that they're there, and some of them might need a lot of thinking and prayers and wishful thoughts from us, given where they are, because we incarnated so many times, and we probably have, right, lots of ancestors too that we connected to, that we're not even aware. So another incident I ran into today is at 2:25 as I was driving towards here along Cornell Road in the mountains, and we had to pull over to the side to yell to a train of cars, about 20-30 of them, heading to a cemetery for a service. So what I did is I pull over, and I, inside the car, I turn on the volume of Mr. Karmapa's sutra chanting a little louder. And I took a moment to connect to the passing vehicles. And I felt that there's the reason that we appear in front of each other, even at this occasion in life. So I feel like I need to send a prayer to this soul who has completed the journey in this life and took a moment to resemble that feeling of the families that drove by. And I feel like for any occasion that with a passing loving member surrounding us, we came to a little moment of awakening that nothing in this life is worth dwelling on. And especially the negativity of everything that's surrounding us. But we tend to also let go when the next moment comes. So it takes constant training. And the third point is come from what I do. I am a Montessori teacher. I work with very young children. And I run my own daycare at the moment for a few years now. So every day I welcome very young ones, like sometimes less than 1 year old, that came to me. And then when they turn 3, we graduate them. And I was very honored, have been very honored to be almost the third person in line after the parents of that child. And every day I look at them, I feel like, wow, they are, old souls. They're young, but they deserve the same amount of respect and same amount of connection that I will try to establish with just a grown-up. And I look at them, I feel like, wow, this is such a journey ahead of you. May you, again, cherish this human life and human path. And like the Buddha's last words, use the time here, use the energy here to be awakened and not to waste any moment of it. Okay, thank you.
Anybody want to report?
I have a group, the subgroup. I wrote this down because I didn't trust myself to be able to express it otherwise. It's about the Death and Dying, the study group. Whenever I reflect on this group, I'm constantly amazed. I've been very fortunate. About a year after moving here, we met another couple, and for about 10 years, this small group of 4 authentically shared, speaks from the heart. In our world, this can be way too rare, and it's very precious. So while this study group's dynamic is very similar, you know, the authentic sharing, listening from the heart, there's something different. And maybe it's because we're engaging with Dharma, maybe because the content revolves around death, but for whatever reason, it's a very calm energy, a very compassionate energy. And calm energy to me isn't an oxymoron. It's just a very calm energy. And it's all the more amazing because it happens in a mix-match bunch of people. Most of us don't have a long history of being in relationship with each other with clear reasons and confirmed over time that we can trust each other and to dare. And often there'll be some who attend for the first time, and yet that delicate bubble of this kind of energy just doesn't pop. And so I'm full of awe and I'm full of gratitude. And for days afterwards, I find myself floating, buoyant within this community. And that gives me hope, and it's also confident that this is possible. It's also good training because it gives me courage, and I can dare to expand, you know, in other situations. But let's see. And I think 4 of us are here today. Yeah. But the group tends to be 6 or 7. And it's just kind of amazing. There'll be somebody who arrives for the first time, and yet that calm, trusting, sharing energy continues. It's like, how does that happen?
Remind us of when you meet.
Oh, thank you. Bruce told me to remind people, and I forgot. So thank you. We just switched to a new time. It's still here, but downstairs. It's still on the 3rd Tuesday afternoons, but we've moved it to be 1:30 to 3, which is the same time that the practice group meets, but they meet on the 1st Tuesday. Third Tuesday. It's the Death and Dying, it's the study group. And last time we used the lectures of Khenpo Rinpoche on the Bardos, but usually we're using a book. And the next book, we're starting a new book in September, and Advice for Future Corpses by Sally Tisdale. Yeah.
What's the title again?
Advice from Future Corpses by Sally Tisdale. She's a Zen practitioner.
Zen practitioner, palliative care nurse, and local writer. That people, whenever I mention the book, well, Miriam suggested it because you've read other ones by her, and whenever I mention the book, say, oh yeah, that woman, great writer.
Yes, September 18th.
Yes.
I just wanted to respond to one thing that you were saying. I don't know your name. Bonnie. About moving to Ashland and the possibility of dying in a place where a lot of your friends are not. Many teachers have talked about dying and said that the people that you care about and that you're connected to, you will have a direct connection with them at that point. And if they're not physically there, it won't matter. So I kind of like to believe that, you know, because it's very comforting in a way, and I think it's probably true, you know.
I was going to try to report on the death and dying practice group, but I haven't attended because in the summer, actually, you two have more than I have. But it's to mention that it does meet the first Tuesday, 1:30 to 3. To 3. And we've done pretty much the same thing, some of the things that we've done here, right? Do the 5 elements. So we actually try to do meditations and sharing. Do you want to add anything, either of you?
Yeah, I have something. Like Carolyn, I also have not been attending as regularly over the summer, but I do remember with fondness when we did a guided meditation. We were lying down, and Celidra led it beautifully and made a recording which she sent to us. I don't know if she made that recording available to everybody on KCC, but it really was quite lovely and helpful, and I would recommend it to everybody. Maybe, Julie, you could say more about it.
So, yes, it was not available to, she didn't send it out to community, but it's certainly easy to send to anyone who's interested. It's actually a dissolution at the time of death. It's a dissolution meditation. Yes, it's the Halifax one. Yeah.
And you know what you can do if you want to, and if you're confident in yourself. I read it to myself on my phone. I recorded myself reading it, and that is actually kind of a trip. That you yourself are dissolving yourself. Yes. So you can get the recording of Celidra, which is probably wonderful, but consider reading it to yourself and then listening. It's got the thought.
Anything else? Well, I was going to save that till last. I was going to ask Mary if she wanted to say anything about it.
Well, let's see. Well, I'm not sure what Peter was going to say. It was something different. Are you talking about caregiving? Well, so I'm still interested if there's people who would want to be involved with, like, just being with people when they are dying, and they don't necessarily. My feeling is that we're all dying, and but there's something special about being with people when they actually are either quite ill or actually in the dying process, or maybe just somebody who's declining. And it would be interesting to know if there are people who are interested in that, doing that, just being available for that. I know there's tons of variables around all of that. If there were enough people interested at some point, like, my thought was that some of these things are pretty simple, but a lot of it's just getting used to being comfortable with yourself and with being around somebody like that. It's like Peter Wood once said, it's a little bit like being a Dharma friend, hospice volunteer, but I don't, what I'd like, I wouldn't be like you're a full caregiver and you're going to be, you're a hired caregiver, you're there 24 hours a day. This is like you coming for a little while to be with somebody, to maybe offer a family member a break, or just to be with your friend and read to them or comb their hair, or maybe if they needed that simple caregiving type of things that anybody could do. But it's nice to have somebody to show you how to do them at least once, so you have a little confidence around it. And the idea isn't that I will do this perfectly like a nurse. The idea is that you will do it lovingly like a friend. and nobody does anything perfectly. But it does give you confidence if you've had a little bit of somebody showing you the right way to turn somebody, or just simple things. I did that at the Heart of Wisdom a couple times when Eric taught the course with Roshi's, and I may be doing it again this February. Just depends. They're thinking about doing it. I've contacted her, so I might be offering that part. I did one of my sessions where it had to do with around caregiving, and then they did another one another time that was about creating sacred space and what that might include. And it's really pretty vast. It just depends on what's meaningful to that person. But I'm still interested in helping people that way, even though I'm retired. I think it's a real rich way to be with people, and it's nothing that anybody here wouldn't be able to do. Physical limitations are there, of course, but the act of just being with somebody is sometimes the most important thing. But if you do have some of these other little pieces, that will make you yourself feel a little more confident, and that's helpful.
Eric, you're talking about. I don't think you're talking about Eric Triplehorn. Who's the other
Eric Fromme. Oh yeah, Eric Fromme, Dr. Fromme, who's now in Boston, and he was an amazing palliative care doctor and doing amazing work there now too with his mentor. So, but it's a really great, when they have that course they offer the course at the monastery. It's definitely not the monastery, at the center here in Portland at Heart of Wisdom. It's definitely worth going to. She's such a great teacher, and so I'm sure that there'll be, if I hear something about it, I'll make sure that a flyer gets here. Because whether I'm there or not, immaterial, it's a wonderful program. It's usually about a 4-week, like 4 Thursdays or Saturdays, I think, or Sundays. I can't remember now. Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, something like that. That sign-up sheet we have here today, there is a place that if you're interested in kind of looking into caregiving stuff, that'd be good. Because there'd probably be opportunities here at KCC now where people would even like someone to help once in a while, and trying to find out who those people are that would even be willing to put themselves in that place.
That's the next thing on the agenda. No one has spearheaded that. It's a hard one to keep alive. Well, I'll tell you, I know I'm very committed to doing that preparatory work. And I have had 4 of my dearest friends in my, either in my age group or younger, that have died in the last 4 years without much notice, without expecting to, without having time to prepare. And yet, it always somehow ends at the bottom of my to-do list. So why is that? So anyway, so that's why I added it, and we'll bump ahead to the practical preparation support.
I didn't mean to put you personally on the spot there. I just did.
You did.
Some group that was reluctant to move forward on this, so.
Right. Right. Yeah. So we're looking for volunteers. So I personally am looking for that kind of a group, you know, more support, something to help motivate, to get together, you know, to make little commitments to each other, have a Dharma box night where we, you know, compare our, you know, our plans and preparations, whatever it takes to, I know that I will feel so much better when I can sit back and realize, you know, whenever it happens, I've done my due diligence or whatever, and whenever it happens, if it's the next moment or 10 years from now, I will love having that feeling of confidence. Not that I expect to be able to plan and that everything is going to go the way I want it, but just that I've done what I can. You know, I've prepared for my loved ones. I've given an idea. You know, I know what should happen to my, you know, remains. I know kind of what I'd like to have around me when the time comes. And anyway, it seems like it shouldn't be that hard, but it is. So
Attitudes, maybe there are some attitudes that are unspoken, and that if people were interested in that, they could get together and just with that kind of group setting it up, there might be some attitudes that are getting in the way of its coming to fruition. There may be some people who would be reluctant to serve on it for certain reasons, and maybe getting a group together specifically on that to discuss what people's attitudes and what they feel about it. Because there are a lot of expectations around something like that. One I could think of would be, is it mandatory? That's a scary thought, you know.
Is what mandatory?
That's a scary thought. Having
Death is.
Yeah, they're all, there's a beeline and they're all going.
That's mandatory.
Okay, flying under the radar. Okay, at any rate, I do think that if there's a special meeting just on that one issue, there could be a set of guidelines, or issues could be discussed, brainstorming, on what conditions would someone feel comfortable having a church group help them out when they're dying. There may be a lot of things to talk about that are keeping people back from wanting to get too involved in that, is all I'm saying. If you'd like, I can help you facilitate something like that one day to just
I've got a sign-up sheet for you.
Okay, I'll do it.
Thank you, Melinda.
So, I mean, it's interesting to me because I keep running at this thing and I don't do the filling in the paper and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like Julie. There's a lot of stuff I kind of need to do, and I know it'd feel good to have it done and ready, and there it is. And for some reason I balk. But I realized I got excited about the part about having a Dharma box party. You know, having either people have put something together, bringing it, show and tell, and having a bunch of different things there, items that you might want to include, and also a chance to kind of share, like to give each other a something, a token, a reminder of the group of support of us doing all of this together. I think that would be wonderful. I mean, Lord knows when I'm dying if I'll recognize it, but still there's a sense of some kind of token of our group and our wishes for each other and our aspirations to be present, crossing over. Anyway.
Good. They're all over the place.
Get that close to a microphone. Here we are. All right. And some years ago, 2 or 3 or 4, sometime or other, I got a phone call from a member of this group, and was told, well, gosh, this fellow over here is dying, and it'd be real good if you just go over and sit with him for a little while. And listening to me now, you'll realize I didn't know what I was getting myself into or do or anything else. And it turned out to be another example of perfection, trying to exist in that perfect place. And of course, you can't do that. There is no such thing as a perfect place. I'll lay that thought out. But I went, sat in the fellow's living room. His family was there. His wife was there. They happened, the two of them happened to have a business together. So there was an attorney present and somebody trying to figure out who got what and where and whatever. And I'm just sitting there like I'm doing now. And all of a sudden, this fellow got up. He was sitting with us. What would we call this person, whatever, the dying person, I can't think of that. I'm just sitting there, and he goes by and he puts his hand on my shoulder. I never met the man. I couldn't tell you what he looked like. I can't even tell you what his name was at this point. He put his hand on my shoulder. What, 10 seconds? 5 seconds? Some short period of time. And then I acknowledged that a little bit, and he walked off to his bedroom, which was right off the living room at that point because he couldn't go upstairs or whatever. As far as I know, he didn't leave his bed from that time forward. And I never attended a service for him or did anything else. The sum total of my activity with this marvelous fellow was to receive that message from him, that he really, really liked having a group. He thought everyone was doing just fine, actually. And so that was quite an experience. I think we can have experiences like that in the future, especially with Melinda starting to lead a group that will be looking at this. So I have some confidence in that happening. I'm on dangerous ground here. But that's all right. That's what I had to share, and that I thought fit in. Let's not get too excited about rules and procedures and perfection, especially perfection. Get rid of that one. And maybe we can see something happen that will be good for all of us.
So it sounds like we have a 4th group.
Melinda, you might start it with a Dharma Box party. Party sounds more inviting to me than paperwork.
I just want, all I was saying was trying to get that preliminary meeting together of what the attitudes are around things. But, you know, I think there's some Zen practitioners in town and other people too who have done Dharma boxes. We could have a pan-religious Dharma box night.
Whatever it takes. Actually, I've already got one here, so they're all over the place. Yeah, I've got 3. Okay.
We don't want you to not be
Thank you. Okay, well, sounds like a beginning for that group because it's certainly every day stares at me, and but it's not really getting done. So now I have someone to help me form that. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So anybody else with anything to share? Okay, so the rest of this meeting, as I was preparing for it, I kind of went back through old notes and trying to recall the times when we were brainstorming and thinking about what the wish lists were, what the things were that we hadn't addressed, and so that's what I wanted to address now. And one of them was exactly what we just started addressing, this whole thing about the practical preparation support. And that's just something that we haven't gotten any momentum, and now maybe from here on out we will. One of our Sangha members, Junie Muniham, sent out a list of her wish list some time ago, which included this list of volunteers willing to practice, read to, play music, or just sit with those sick and dying. And also, that was one, and one was a secure filing system at KCC for individual Sangha members who want to list or file their requests for what they'd like to happen at or around their death. And then the third one was something to work with SCOL and the setting aside of some memorial area, garden or wherever, and with a bench to sit on, a place for spreading of ashes or holding memorials. So anyway, those were on her list, and then the fourth thing was this that we just discussed. So, oh, yes, take one of these.
I guess I have a question, and maybe for the group. I guess I wanted to. So, when I talk about this stuff, and I've thought about doing this before, but I don't know if anybody would come. So if myself and maybe a couple other people offered, like, I wouldn't say any more than like a 2-hour get together on like some little how-tos, like basic, what I'd call very basic patient care for maybe somebody who's not getting out of bed anymore. Would people come to that, do you think? Would people come if that was offered or not? Would they only come if there was a need? So that's my question. That was one thing. Like if I had a little class and people came, would they come? Like would there be, like, would 5 people come maybe? Or would be the better way to do it would be if there was some people that could do some of these things and a need arose, and then you showed people how to do it when the need arose. So I've been kind of like stuck between those two places. Mm-hmm. Like, do you do a formal thing, or do you wait until there's a need? Or you do a formal thing and then there's some people ready? Because that's sort of my general feeling. Okay.
Please. I've also been connected for years with the Shambhala Center, and we actually had 2 people in the last few years that were dying. One who was one of the teachers there, one of the lay teachers, and it was amazing how everyone stepped up and figured it out. And it kind of didn't seem to matter at all that we had no advanced plan, but we had a person we cared about that needed a lot of care. She lived alone. She'd been in a relationship that had ended, and she really had no close family. I mean, her family finally came when she was really on death's door, but they were living in other parts of the country. So without the Shambhala Center, it would have been a very, very hard time, and everybody just stepped up and figured it out and learned how to do it, and people who knew stuff told other people, and it does work when the need arises, although that doesn't mean don't prepare in advance, but you know, if we needed to do that, we would do it, and we would do it well as a group. I believe that.
Was there a communication structure, some care?
Yeah, there was an online sign-up thing. In fact, we had another member of the Shambhala Center who just got very badly hurt and multiple surgeries and still can't really walk. And we're still doing you know, they'll say he needs help this time of day on this day, and we put it online. What is that? Lots of Helping Hands, or one of those sites, and seems to work out quite well.
So, I guess part of my question is, does the Shambhala Center have a plan, a kind of caregiving plan, like a structure for when someone that they put into action?
Well, you know, we had a death and dying group, kind of like this, that met once a week, and I think we did put a sort of a communication tree together, and that was about all, I think.
But in the moment, it wasn't necessarily something that you had set up before. Yeah.
I'm trying to think back. We did set up some ideas and some structure within that group. It was actually after these people had died and been taken care of already, but you know, it was sort of a way of like, could we do it? What else? What could we have done?
Could you
to
formalize
organize
it
better? And
yeah.
you know, it was mostly like a communication tree and online stuff, and you know, nothing like no earth-shattering ideas that we probably wouldn't think of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I've had the sense that the Shambhala people have been way ahead in terms of thinking about these, you know, caring for the dying. And I mean, I know the group in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, they do everything from the beginning through the burial. Yeah.
Well, we had this member, Ann Kason, who started that, she years ago started in Boulder a Buddhist home care, you know, where people were working and being paid for it, but they were all Buddhists, and they, of course, they would help anyone who hired them to help, but they especially were there for members of the Buddhist Sangha who, you know, needed the kind of things that Buddhists would want to have and need as we were passing on.
Great book.
Yeah, I've got that book. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's out of print now.
No, I bought one on, I got it on Kindle.
Yeah. Okay. It's not being reprinted, but anyway, the writer is Ann Kason, Cason.
Something
and you
about
could
care
probably look her
circles,
up.
isn't it?
Yeah, caring circles.
Caring circles.
Yes. Yeah, Circles of Care.
Circles of care. There you go.
It's very good.
Excellent. You can find it digitally.
Yeah, and I worked with her for a couple of years, you know, getting paid to go and be caregivers for people that were dying. It was amazing work. I loved it. It wasn't somehow, maybe because I'm a Buddhist, it wasn't depressing at all.
So with hearing all that, would people find value though in knowing some things ahead of time, like knowing maybe some would and some wouldn't. So I might try putting that out there at some point. I'm pretty involved in the children's program right now, so on the other end of life, but. Anyway, I'm very open to showing people how to do stuff. I kind of miss doing the patient care stuff because I'm not doing it anymore. But I think it's a wonderful way to be with people. And I know that when I've shown people how to do something, they always said, "Oh, you may be doing something okay, but you may not be doing it as proficiently or as you might." Not that I would do it perfect either. There's a lot of different ways of doing things.
No room for perfect.
No, so you're gonna make mistakes. We all do.
Do we have time, Miss Judy? A couple minutes more, or?
Sure.
Okay. So I remember when His Holiness visited U.S. in 2014. So he planned for. Signal is not very stable. Thank you. So he originally planned for 8 lectures at 8 universities, but it turned out to be more people wanted to be added on to the list, and eventually he did like close to 36 universities. And one of the last university he visited was Harvard Divinity School, and all the faculty there were talking about the end-of-life care and how to infuse, you know, Buddhism, how to integrate that into that practice. And then I personally, I was definitely, if we have a program like that, I will sign up, because I think that's a blessing that I was involved in a experience like this last year, when a family in our neighborhood, obviously I knew them very late. This girl was 11 years old. She was fighting cancer for 5 years. So she went through 51 chemos. And I can't tell how much that family went through. Got 3 girls, and this is the middle one, who was a twin. It was actually a twin for the 2 older ones. So she was in the ending stage that I got to connect to this family, because dad was a Buddhist, and he's a vegetarian, and our family has been vegetarian since 2006. So he had nobody prepare food for him. So I volunteered to cook for him and drop at the door, so the 2 parents can rotate, just stay at the hospital full time at Dornbecker. Her name was Victoria. I'm not going to mention her last name, just out of respect. So I was always planning to visit her. Somehow I got a call, February 14, 15-ish, I got a phone call, and dad said, Victoria passed away this morning at 5. And the doctors were very kind to let us keep the room for 1 more day, 24 hours, to let us do whatever we need to. Can you come today to pray for her? Just what we wanted is just to say, constantly say the name of Buddhas, Amitofo, for like 8 hours. I went with 2 friends from Tzu Chi Foundation from Taiwan. So together with her parents, the 5 of us stayed there, just chanted the Buddha's name, the Pure Land Buddha's name. I was only able to do it for 2 hours. I stood there without sitting down. I was sweating. She was just lying down there. I felt like I knew her. There was no like fear or anything. On the way there, I was a little bit not sure, because I don't know, you know, how am I going to respond to this situation. But I feel like there's a reason. Maybe she want me to do this for her. So there's a reason that we all came together at this moment. And I was able to do that. And I think the big part was also being there for the family, the mom. I have children of my own, so for that, mom was just kind of coming down, you know. I was holding her hands. I said, this moment, I can feel what you feel, but we need to be very, very firm in what we believe and we practice. Because once you turn emotional, her heart may come back and say, oh, my mom's it's hurt, and I need to stay with her. I said this 24 hours is very important for her to move on, you know, move on toward the light. And then all we can do is just keep that face and encourage her to go that way and not coming back and not turning back. So her mom stood up, and we all stood there. I only stayed for 2 hours, and then before I left, I came close to her. I wished upon her year. I said, you know, may you be with Buddha today and go to Pure Land. And if you wish to come help us, come back later. And then we also, before I left, I dedicated all the chanting that day to all the sick children at Dornbecker, because that whole unit was like terminally ill children. And that was in the middle of February in Portland. We had like steady rain for months, and that day was 60 degrees with sunshine. So I took a picture of the day when we came out of the hospital. And 8 hours later, after she passed away, her dad texted me, said, we just changed Victoria's clothes. I need to share with you, her body was soft and not stiff and not cold. And she had this, you know, a very calm expression on her face, not suffering. So he needed to share that piece with us to say thank you. And also, it gave us faith in what we did. And then 49 days, he came back. You know, I said, I never dreamed of Victoria during this 49 days. I think she's at a very good place. And so, yeah, that's just a story I want to share.
Your story reminded me of having been with several people as they were dying, and just the way these Buddhist teachings are always have so much wisdom and there's so much help, because if you believe that your state of mind is going to affect them as they are trying to let go, then you just have to stay really calm and really joyous and just like, go, this is a joyous occasion, and whether it's even true or not, it helps us so much because we can't just be wailing and moaning and, gnashing our teeth, because we feel like it would affect them, so it's a beautiful teaching that way.
You can keep it.
Truly, is it possible to speak about a couple of the other items? Is there time?
Couple other items.
On this sign-up thing?
Oh, yeah. It's time to go there.
So to switch back to the really practical, when I saw the sign-up sheet and the second part, the filing system, and I keep thinking of the web and being 24/7 accessible. And now that Linda G's been figuring out the Google Drive, I was wondering if the place to file would be on the Google Drive, and if it was self-posted, that person could edit and that person could access and then leave just clear instruction, maybe in the Dharma box, for how to access it. So it's not like trying to come down here and find a physical paperwork, but do it digitally. And then I believe on Google Drive, if it was one person's name, one person's folder, it wouldn't be accessible by all. It would be accessible to whoever they gave permission to and gave the link. So that would be one way of working on the filing system. And then out of these 5, I know that I've been interested in Mary's teaching. That's why I went to Heart of Wisdom, to learn how to turn somebody in bed who can't do it themselves. It might be a 2-hour teaching, but then there's the implementation and the using it later, and so I don't want to commit to that now. But something that I can commit to doing time on, and that is, because I could chip away on it on my own, is the folder that you have, this binder of all the handouts and everything, that essentially making digital copies and putting them on an accessible to everybody section on a Google Drive, if that would be the way to do it. But that's something I could chip away at and put some time on, but maybe there's a few of us that chip away at posting things on the Google Drive and making sure anybody who wants a link can get it, whether it's the dreaded paperwork or the root text, the 6 root verses or other items. Yeah. So I'm just saying it so if that sparked interest or ideas from anyone else.
So I see we have a little library shelf down in the basement now that I think is eventually going to, well, I don't know exactly what it's going to contain, but so I'm going to leave this folder down there in the basement, and every handout, everything we've talked about, there are copies of it in here for anyone to access. And then I've also put in some empty page holders if people want to add any resources to it too. I'll just keep it down there. Yeah.
Where will you store that?
It's there's a shelf in the community room.
Toward the back door?
Yeah, it's toward the back door. It's, yeah, sitting there. It's kind of empty. I think there's a couple of Tricycles magazines sitting in it.
There's boxes to be filled, unpacked for that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've heard that we have a lot of library, but waiting for a place to put it.
Right, and I was told that that was going to be the place, so I thought, well, this is a good place for it, so, yeah. So, so now being circulated is this sign-up sheet.
Start another one from the other side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I brought in extra just in case.
We're each doing one, or are we all?
No, I'm just passing it around to see who's willing to put their neck out. Actually, it's not so much about commitment, but about interest. So,
So I'm assuming that it helps to put not just your name, but your contact info.
yes, legibly, your name, contact info, whether you would be willing to actually take a lead or just have an interest in participating. Yeah. And there's a space at the bottom for anything that we haven't thought about that you think that you would be interested in pursuing in this vein around death and dying. And we'd love to hear about it. And
can you possibly include us in an email, and then those of us who want to commit to something can let everybody know, and send an email out? For instance, when a meeting could be the kind of meeting I was thinking about, I could tell everybody. Can we get the people here today on an email?
Well, like one email that you send out to everybody, that would be for the whole group, right?
so I generally send emails out to the community because a lot of people let me know that they can't show up for whatever reason, and I know I hate doing extra community emails, but I think there are a number of people out there that don't necessarily come to these meetings, but that would be interested. So anything that seems like it might be of general interest. So so once we have some response and know that there is some interest, and we have a point person, then that person might be responsible for getting it out to the rest of the community. Like if Melinda was planning a meeting. Does that make sense? I don't actually have a separate list for this group because it's different people show up at different times, so it's, yeah. So for the time being, we'll use the community. If that makes sense.
You want to check if anybody is not on community?
Oh. Be sure and put your contact information down. Are you interested in being on the community list? That's where all the announcements of things that are happening. Is it easy to do?
Used to be, I haven't checked in a while.
So you go to the website?
Yeah, and on the right-hand side there's a bunch of little items. One of them is sign up for an email list.
Okay.
And you can sign up for the general announcement list, but in addition there's something called community, which is much more interactive.
Yeah, but you'll get lots and lots of things. Just be aware. The announcements you don't get as many, but you want the ones that's all about the people, yes, that's the community list.
And you get to know us better.
Yeah, so this is, yes, you need.
to Melinda's question about time to meet. I've experienced a group that uses the, is it the Doodle app to put out the calendar possible dates, and people check what they can come, and then you can find out what date the most people can come to. It's really handy. I turned my nose up at it before I tried it, and actually now I'm a fan.
What is it called?
Doodle, I think.
Yeah.
Doodle, a member of an activist book group, and it's really been helpful. So, and it looks pretty easy.
But then you have to know who your group is too.
That helps. You need to know who's interested, and then you put the poll out to people that are interested. Or you could, I suppose, you could put the poll out to everybody, the community, and say, if you're interested in coming to a group on X, then fill out the Doodle calendar.
Sounds like something for you, Peter, to figure out. It's over my head already, I can tell.
You have a core group, you make sure they can come whenever you choose.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else can fill in. It's not hard, but I haven't done it. You know, there's a small thing coming up in a couple months called the election, so I'm expecting I'll be doing a lot of stuff on that, so how is that available for new group meetings?
Right.
Until after the election.
Right.
Just so you know.
Just say no, right?
Like healthcare for everyone, this is somewhat related to death and dying.
Oops.
But this is a really valuable group. I really appreciate that we gathered.
Me too.
Sharing.
Yeah, me too.
At least we're not pretending it doesn't happen.
That's all we're here we're thinking about it.
So I'm thinking, one went that way, one went this way. I wonder if
Have they met yet?
Yeah.
Are they, okay, so it's completed, so we can actually dedicate. And did we lose somebody?
So maybe it's a chance to mention June brought a big bowl of fruit to share.
Yeah.
Chocolate.
Godiva chocolate.
Oh, wow.
And red fruit.
It looked like a big bowl of cut fruit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I rudely didn't give anybody a break.
Next time, let's do the short offering for the dying. That looks pretty good.
Oh, I forgot to mention that, yeah. I just included that. It was in this, on the backside of the 6 root verses that I copied for today. I can't remember exactly where I found this, but I like it.
Are we ending at 5 or 5:30?
5. We're, yeah, so for those of you who got this copy of the 6 root verses, on the back of it is a very nice short offering for the dying, for someone who is dying, and yeah. So I just included that because I came across it and I thought, this is good. So there it is. So it could be something that you record and listen to yourself, say it to yourself. Something to keep in mind if someone is interested, that you're, who's dying, that you are participating with them. Anyway, I just thought it was just a very nice short offering.
Is everybody
Yeah, it's in here.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is in here, I think. So shall we dedicate? By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in his state. Thank you. Oh, here's some more copies of that, actually. Somebody didn't have that. Okay. Found a whole bunch. Snag one.